There are tons of videos on YouTube about all the scenes in the Harry Potter books that should have been in the movies. But you know what there isn't? A video about all the scenes in the movies that should have been in the books. And that's what we're going to do today. We are going to talk about movie scenes that added to the book scenes. If you took them and put them in the books, it would make those scenes better. And I got one for each movie. So that means there's 2 for Deathly Hallows in the book, plus a small list of honorable mentions that are good, but not as good as these. This is actually part of my canon series, like what is canon in Harry Potter. And I thought maybe to build up to the video where I talk about the movies as a whole, all 11 Harry Potter movies, that includes Fantastic Beasts, if you know how math works, on if they are canon or not. And these are scenes that I think should be considered canon. I know they didn't happen in the book, but they do add to the universe a little bit more. And I have a whole list of rules. I have a first video about the canon right here. So click on that. It talks about the rules of at least what I think would make things in the Harry Potter universe be canon and what Harry Potter books are canon. But today we are talking about 8 scenes that were added in the movies that should have been in the series the whole time. And I will preface this slightly that some of this is just a single line that was added in the movie that just kind of gives it that little extra oomph. So of course, we're going to start with Sorcerer's Philosopher's Stone, and that is she needs to sort out her priorities.
I'm going to bed before either of you come up with another clever idea to get us killed. Or worse, expelled.
She needs to sort out her priorities.
Which is such a good line. And it's so good, you would think, yeah, that's in the books. That's she says, before we get ourselves killed, or worse, expelled. And then Ron goes, she needs to sort out her priorities. That's not in the book at all. It's such a good line, and it adds to that book line so well, but it's not in the book. It should be, but it's not. And that's what's crazy. That's what these scenes are. It could be a single line that was added later. Like one of my favorite lines, getting into now Chamber of Secrets, is when Ron's looking at Harry and goes, do you think Hagrid let something mad in Harry loose in the castle? And then Hagrid walks up behind him and goes, mad in Harry? You wouldn't be talking about me, would ya?
Hello, Hagrid. Tell us, have you been setting anything mad and hairy loose in the castle lately?
Mad and hairy? You wouldn't be talking about me now, would you?
No.
Also, not in the books, only in the movies. And it's not a scene that needs to be in the movies. It's just a good line for him to come in and go, mad and Harry, because what is Hagrid but mad and Harry? And it makes it kind of awkward because they're like, oh, crap. And I understand in the books, it's partially because they're like, it can't be Hagrid. It can't be Hagrid. And Ron, they're having the discussion that we need to probably go talk to Hagrid, but we're not going to go talk to Hagrid. And then later they do go talk to Hagrid after Hermione is attacked. So it's just kind of one of those things that it works in the movies. And I think it would be really funny in the book. Like, oh crap, where did he come from? But it's funny. I like it. It's one of my favorite scenes in Chamber of Secrets. And of course, these scenes are single lines. Like I said, we get more in-depth scenes later on in the movies because, fun fact, the first 3 movies are relatively book accurate. So there's only slight things throughout that it's like, oh, this is fun. But for some reason they thought, hey, let's add full scenes into these movies that the books are already longer than the movies. Anyway, one of my favorite scenes in Prisoner of Azkaban that is not in the books is as Harry's walking down the hallway using the map with the light, and the picture keeps yelling at people to turn that light out.
Put that light out.
Sorry.
Are you deaf? Put that light out.
It's just funny. It doesn't need to be in the books, but it just kind of adds a little bit, the portraits are alive and just, they're trying to sleep too. Turn that light out. Because of course that whole scene doesn't actually occur in the book at all with, with Harry running into Snape and Snape going, "Where did you get this paper from?" And then Remus showing up and going, I'll take that from him. Harry, come with me. So, plus it also builds that whole Peter Pettigrew mystery thing into it. And it's just the scene as a whole, not a huge fan of. I just like the portraits having more personality, because in the movies, they really don't have that much personality. In the books, they do have a lot of personality, but we mostly get Sir Cadogan in Prisoner of Azkaban. And this is also where we start seeing them adding things for the sake of just adding things, such as the talking head, little shrunken head that talks. We don't need that. Stan Chumpike was funny enough. Now we're into Goblet of Fire. One of the things I like is the age line scene. I think the age line scene in the books is good once Dumbledore shows up and goes, "Ha ha ha, I did warn you." But I see Hermione sitting there going, "It's not going to work." And them going, "But it's dreadfully, simply brilliant. But it's just so easy. Maybe Dumbledore forgot." And I know part of those lines are in the book, but I think in the movie they are just so much better. Especially when the fact that they jump in, grow their beards, and start fighting each other about, "You said, no, you said." Those were fun. And then you can add the Dumbledore scene. Have Fred and George fighting each other just like, "I thought you said it would work, but I thought it wouldn't work." It would have been fun. I know it's a small scene. Like I said, some of these are just single lines that were added to the movie that just kind of enhance that scene just a little bit more. Now, this one is a whole scene that was added to the movie, which I think is good. People like this quote a lot, too. It's in Order of the Phoenix, when Harry's just kind of going through that, like, am I a bad guy? Am I going to become Voldemort? And in the books, it's just kind of like Ginny comes up, smacks him in the head and go, "Why didn't you talk to me about being possessed? I've been possessed by Voldemort. I know how it feels. Get over yourself. You're not special." Talking about Ginny having personality in the books over the movie is a dead horse that has been beaten many times. But this scene with Sirius talking to Harry about Sirius going, "Listen, it's not just Death Eaters and not Death Eaters. Like, there's, as someone who has been accused of being a bad guy for most of his life, being raised a black and then framed for the murder of Peter Pettigrew, life is rough. And not everybody is just a good guy or a bad guy. The Ministry is the good guy, but we torture them in a prison full of Dementors. So how good are they actually?"
I want you to listen to me very carefully, Harry. You're not a bad person. You're a very good person who bad things have happened to. You understand? Besides, the world isn't split in two.
And Sirius is just like, "Hey, look, I understand where you're coming from. I had a lot of pressure to be a Death Eater when I was growing up." But let's move on to Half-Blood Prince, to one of the best stories that is told in that movie, because there's not a lot of good scenes in Half-Blood Prince. We all know this. But one of the best scenes is by far the Felix Felicis scene. But specifically for me, it's the goldfish story, where Slughorn sits there and talks about, "I came into my office and there was just a fishbowl with a flower in it, and it slowly fell to the bottom, and once it hit the bottom, it became a fish. And I kept that fish, because it was from my favorite student. And the day that student died was the day the fish disappeared."
It was a student who gave me Francis. One spring afternoon, I discovered a bowl on my desk. Just a few inches of clear water in it. Floating on the surface was a flower petal. As I watched, it sank. Just before it reached the bottom, it's transformed to a wee fish. It was beautiful magic, wondrous to behold. The flower petal had come from a lily. Your mother. The day I came downstairs, the day the bowl was empty. Yesterday, your mother.
So just to show, like, we get Harry using Lily's guilt, like the guilt of, Lily dying, to get that memory from Slughorn, but just Slughorn actually giving Harry this gift of, this is who your mother was. Just the sweetest person who saw the best in everybody, to the point that she literally gave a bit of her own magic to Slughorn. Like, it was a piece of her, because when she died, it disappeared because her magic was gone. And it's just a heartbreaking story in the fact that, Slughorn had it confirmed for him that the Potters were dead before most people probably even realized, because her magic was gone after she died. And it's such a good scene, and I can't believe it's not in the books. This is the scene that made me want to do this video. Talking about scenes in the movies that should have been in the books, and this scene is just by far the best scene in that movie that should have been in the books. Now, a little bit more lighthearted is Deathly Hallows Part 1. Fred and George are just joking around, and Moody tells them to stop, and Fred or George, I think Fred, goes, just trying to diffuse the tension.
For those of you who haven't taken Polyjuice Potion before, fair warning, it tastes like goblin piss.
I've lots of experiences with that, dear Maddo. Just trying to diffuse the tension.
And like I said, sometimes it's just a single line that makes a scene that much better. And that is one of the lines. Another line in that is the Fleur looking at Bill and said, "Don't look at me, Bill. I'm hideous." And it's like, all right. Because in the books, Harry's sitting there watching them all undress as him and go, well, could you have a little bit more modesty? It's my body. It's not your body, but it's my body you're kind of showing off. But I feel like it helps, have that little, like, I'm hideous, really kind of helps build that whole, all right, well, thanks, Fleur, that you think I'm hideous. But it's just the little lines throughout the series that really help build the scenes from the books in the movies. And finally, in Deathly Hallows Part 2, one of my favorite scenes, which doesn't happen this way in the books, is the sacking of Severus Snape. There seems to be a lack of security, Headmaster, and Harry comes out in front of him in the Great Hall. I think it's a great scene.
It seems, despite your exhaustive defensive strategies, you still have a bit of a security problem, Headmaster. I'm afraid it's quite extensive.
With the fight scene, and then McGonagall pushing him out of the way and fighting Snape, which that little scene does happen in the books, but it's actually McGonagall joined by Flitwick and Sprout attacking Snape. But I think Snape versus McGonagall is such a great fight, and the fact that Snape blocks McGonagall's spells to knock out both the Carrows, which seems just so effortless for Snape to basically show, like, hey, Snape is a very powerful wizard. Snape deserved to be headmaster, and Snape just effortlessly blocks McGonagall's spells to knock out two other wizards behind him while also not getting hit himself. And McGonagall is a very powerful witch, don't get me wrong, but the fact that Snape is only being defensive and not being offensive, while McGonagall is just walking forward being super offensive, which is cool. It's a cool scene, and just to show the whole her protecting Harry, like, these are my kids. Don't mess with me or my kids. Which, the one thing that you don't get with this because of that scene is the Carrows spitting at McGonagall and Harry ripping off the invisibility cloak and just crucifying the Carrows with the Crucio curse. And it's like, no. Like, I like the protective mother in this, but you, unfortunately, if you added this and took out the other thing, you lose Harry going, look, this is my mom. Don't mess with my mom. And then you still have her protecting him later, but not as much. So, I'll wait. But this is such a good scene. I think it really reflects on the fact of how much McGonagall cares about her students, which you see throughout the book series, but not as much through the movies, with the whole, I'm not giving you homework because I've become kind of fond of the Quidditch trophy in my office. Like, listen, I care about you guys. I want to win too. Good scenes in the book. But that's it. That's the 8 scenes in the movies that I think should have been in the book. There's some honorable mentions, and we'll go through them really quickly. So first off, one of the honorable mentions is Hagrid coming in and talking about some ruddy owl named Errol delivered my letter to Azkaban, and it took me a while to get back.
The owl that delivered my release papers got all lost and confused. Some ruddy bird called Errol.
In Prisoner of Azkaban, you have Bim, who's just the ominous kid in the background who we never see before this, and kind of, I think he shows up one other time and later in the series just as a background actor. But who is this kid? Why does he show up to be so ominous?
It's among the darkest omens in our world. It's an omen of death. That's right. Black could be anywhere. It's like trying to catch smoke. Like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
Goblet of Fire, the I'm not an owl, when she's trying to tell Harry that Parvati told Lavender, who told Seamus, who told Dean, who said Hagrid's looking for him. Well, you can tell Ron, I'm not an owl. Order of the Phoenix, I must not tell lies. When Umbridge is on the ground and telling Harry, tell the centaurs I mean no harm, and Harry goes, I mustn't tell lies, which is a good line, which is used again later. And I think that kind of takes away, like, yes, it puts it in the movie, but as a series, it's such a good callback later when Harry goes, one mustn't tell lies, Dolores. And it's just because Harry uses that scar as a badge of honor throughout the series when he shows it to Rufus Scrimgeour in book 6 and says, like I said, Minister, I don't like your methods.
Tell them I mean no harm! I'm sorry, Professor. I must not tell lies.
Also in Order of Phoenix, nice one, James! When Sirius calls Harry James as his last moment. His last moment is him fighting alongside his best friend, which is probably the way that both of them wanted to die in the first place, is fighting next to each other. In the books, we have the whole idea of, Sirius kind of sees Harry as James 2.0, like, you're your father, and is every time disappointed because Harry makes the choice that probably Lily would have made. You're less like your father than I thought. But I think this little scene, which could have been in the books, is one of those little scenes that, you add that in and it's like, yeah, it confirms Sirius thinks Harry is James. And it kind of helps show the whole idea that, his 12 years in Azkaban left him a very messed up man. Because he's still probably at that 19-year-old mentality that he was when he went into Azkaban. Just the brazen, Gryffindor personality of run in, shoot spells, and then go, I probably should have asked some questions first. Because that's who Sirius is. He got trapped in that age when he went to Azkaban. He wasn't able to mature.
Nice one, James!
And we already kind of brought this one up. The Felix Felicis scene in Half-Blood Prince is fantastic in the movies. I think it's just, I don't think it would be able to translate well on the page because I think a lot of the acting comes from Daniel Radcliffe himself. Like, Daniel Radcliffe was showing his chops at this point. Like, look, let me show you what I can do. I'm not just the boy who lived. I am a well-trained actor. I'm an actor from the theater. But I think it's a great scene. Harry is absolutely hilarious in this. And then you get the heartbreaking story that we've already talked about. Should have been in the book.
Seriously misunderstood creatures spiders are. It's the eyes, I reckon. They unnerve some folk.
Not to mention the pincers.
Yeah, I reckon that too.
And the last two are from Deathly Hallows Part 2, and they're almost back to back. First, when Harry's in the woods with his mother, and this is, like I said, one single line that changes the scene for the better. Harry looks at his family and says, "Will you stay with me till the end?" In the books, it's just a nod. In the movies, the mother says always, which the amount of weight on that always, seen as just moments before Harry just watched these scenes of Snape's life, where then Dumbledore says, after all this time, you still care for her. And Snape goes, always. He does expecto patronum. Super aggressive about it, even though it's just a slight wand turn. It's expecto patronum.
Stay close to me.
Always.
Anyway. And then right after that, Harry goes out into the Aragog's nest, and Voldemort goes, ah, the boy who lived come to die. Which is such a good line. Like, the boy who lived come to die? So great, so iconic. Not in the book. It's a movie-only quote. And it's one of the greatest lines that Voldemort has in the series. But yeah, the boy who lived come to die.
Harry Potter. The boy who lived. Come to die.
And that's it. That's all my honorable mentions. That's the whole video. If you like this style video, let me know in the comments down below. But like I said, this is part of a series where I am going through what is canon and what is not in the Harry Potter universe to eventually build the ultimate timeline of here are the true events of what happens in Harry Potter, and this is years that are important. So without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe, stay marvelous, and Nox.